Hello everyone, I'm Jim Masters and welcome to CUTV News. This is the show where we talk to today's top thinkers from all around the world to bring you information, inspiration, and thought-provoking ideas that you can put to use in your personal or professional life right now. Today, my special guest is Dr. Kimberly Rehak. Dr. Rehak is a certified behavior analyst, co-founder of the International Institute for Behavioral Development, and also the founder of Dr. Kim Live. She holds doctoral degrees in special education, and behavior analysis. In addition to graduate level degrees in clinical and counseling psychology with a concentration in addictions. Dr. Rehak is a member of many professional organizations, and she's worked in educational, community-based, home and clinical settings, as well as the juvenile justice system. She's applied all of this experience to her behavior analysis, as well as other services she has provided through IIBD. At Dr. Kim Live, she's focused on making the world a better place by providing information and resources, events, and entertainment that enhance parenthood and childhood experiences free of charge. Ensuring children have access to a present and future that is bright and full of promise, with a variety of offerings to help support parents and their children currently in development. Dr. Kim is amazing, and she joins me right here, right now, on CUTV News. Dr. Kim, welcome to CUTV News. It's a real honor and pleasure to have you here. We've done radio shows together. Now we're here in the television studio, and thanks for coming all this way to join us today.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here, Jim.
I know you're very excited because you have a lot to share with us of some really exciting things that are happening in your life and in your career. And one of those things is Dr. Kim Live, which I said in the introduction. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, as you know, we've had conversations on the air and off the air. I like to humanize my guests and make them real and connect with the audience. So people might be saying, okay, let's hear a little bit more about her background, her experience, what inspires her. So when you look at your life's journey and your career pursuits, what are some of the things that have inspired you to do the beautiful and important work that you do, Doctor?
Okay. So at the present time, I've made some shifts in terms of my current roles. So I still do counseling through telehealth. Luckily, with the technology that exists, if people, for whatever reason, can't come to where I'm located physically at the present time, there are other means to connect. So, and there's a variety of reasons, why that technology is so useful and helpful to people in terms of their everyday requirements, demands, and again, maybe just their location or other constraints. So I still do some of that. I'm still teaching, also using telecommunications. I teach only online, which has been really helpful to me. Also, I'm a mother of 4 children myself, and my husband does quite a bit of traveling.
And that's one of the things that initially interested you in the work that you do, was to work initially with kids, right?
Definitely. So, and I've worked at all different ages and stages of life with many different populations over the years. And it's the human condition. I've always been very interested and curious about the way things work and the reasons why things work and people work, how they work together or don't work so well together, and what are the factors. So that was sort of an innate, natural curiosity from childhood. And in terms of my training and professional degrees and credentialing, it really just took a natural path in terms of educational degrees, psychology degrees, behavior analysis, and the list goes on. But in terms of at the present time, what I'm doing is really just some, we've done a lot of supervision of people when they're actually going through their coursework. They need experience hours, supervisory assistance, internships. I've done a lot of teaching at many different universities, to name a few: St. Joseph's University, Arcadia University, Lehigh University, Chicago School of Professional Psychology. Like I said, I'm still at Ball State University.
What are some of the things that you teach in terms of the programs, the course offerings?
Many different. So Arcadia, that was the first university I actually taught at, and so it was graduate level education courses on campus primarily. As well as some online, helped them develop their Autism Institute and behavior analysis coursework, even when I was still enrolled in doctoral degree program there. So did their fieldwork placement, so for student teachers, people that were going to school to become teachers, that was some of the work at Arcadia specifically. Lehigh University, similarly in their education department. St. Joseph's University, it was, at the time I was there on campus, it was the criminal justice sociology program, part of the Public Safety Institute, and very clinical applications of behavior analysis. So you're talking case formulations of Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, really looking at the etiology of some of criminal behavior, forensic psychology, and how that may have developed from early childhood on in terms of some of those factors that were relevant in looking at the psychology of that behavior specifically. I believe that program now is housed in the education department. I'm no longer with them. So it was, again, clinical applications of behavior analysis and really looking at the environment and its effects on somebody that could commit a crime.
Exactly, right.
But again, looking at childhood, and that was really the impetus. Dr. Kim Live, multifactorial. A lot of parents calling in, other educators.
Tell us a little about the model for Dr. Kim Live.
So really it kind of came organically, again, out of IIBD. It was born in that we got a lot of inquiries that wouldn't necessarily convert, whether it wasn't needed, or the resources weren't there, or based on the location of the person calling in. And it's not at all, it was never intended to be a replacement for formal professional services. So it's very general, it's not advice, very general input, and then, a recommendation to see if services would be needed to set up and schedule an intake appointment. And then really, I did the first 5 seasons of the one segment, Tell Me What to Do Tuesdays. And then we had other guest hosts coming on, and they would really just talk about whether they were promoting a new book or they had a workshop, training series, their own services. But the whole mission is to provide and to produce information, resources, entertainment opportunities.
Sure. So people that are calling in or that are making the connection, what are some of the things that you've experienced they're looking for?
Input, and sometimes they just want to know, is everything okay? This is what's
their
happening.
Life, their troubles, their frustrations, their experiences.
Exactly. Whether it's their child, whether it's they themselves are going through a situation, a relationship change, a career change, a life-altering event of some sort. And again, it's not in any way, when I say Dear Abby, it ethically, because of some of my degrees and also licensures, and can't give specific, so it's not a replacement, but it's more to kind of guide them in the direction of maybe you do want to take this a step further and schedule an intake appointment so a professional can make that determination. And sometimes it's like, well, that's just a natural part. Your 3-year-old's having a tantrum. 3-year-olds have tantrums at times.
Right.
That's developmentally appropriate.
It's common.
So sometimes they just need somebody to say, like, that's normal, that happens. If it happens at this level, maybe take a closer look.
So is your primary focus on children?
Like I said, I've worked at all ages and stages of development. My preference was always children, but when you look at children, you have to look at the environment surrounding those children and the effects of the behaviors of whether it's the parents, professionals. Children are responders. And not to say that there aren't different personality features or characteristics. You could have 2 children raised in the exact same home and turn out very differently.
Exactly right.
But for parents to understand, just because that worked for your daughter Susie, it doesn't mean that that's going to be the right parenting approach or most appropriate parenting approach or most effective for your son Johnny.
Right.
You have to make some changes. You can't necessarily expect a child to be more regulated than his or her environment. So that kind of came out of a lot of the focus on the pediatric behavioral health care and clinical counseling pediatrics at IIBD and education designers. Do we have to train the teachers or the staff working with the child to do things differently, which will ultimately change the child's behavior? Does the parent need training, counseling? Maybe there's no routine in basics of parenting. There's no set bedtime.
Right.
And maybe Susie was able to put herself on a set bedtime, or you just had to say it once, and from then on, she did that. But Johnny's going to be a little different. He's going to need you're going to read him a couple books first, and you're going to maybe lay down with it, and then ease him. Every child is unique, and every child is different. So for parents to have that level of reflectivity that they need to change, so they could be more regulated so their child could be more successful.
So what are some of the things that you're seeing? Because there's a lot of societal pressures out there, and there's social media and so many things, so much information coming at people today.
Right.
What are some of the things that you're seeing in terms of that family dynamic with the children, with the parents, that people are struggling with today, especially what kids are struggling with today?
Well, I think it's what you just said. There's a lot of mixed messages based on media. Who do I listen to? Well, or extended family, maybe well-meaning, well-intentioned. Well, that's not what my mother-in-law said is right. So, and that's not how she did it.
Right.
So,
right.
You're competing with messages, generational differences. 2019 is the world we're living in. Maybe what worked in the 1950s, or maybe it didn't work so well when we really want to reflect honestly and accurately, is definitely not going to fit with the society that we're living in today in 2019. Also, there's 9, when we talked in that last radio interview, 9 classifications now of behavioral health professionals. Do I take my child to a therapist? Do I need a psychologist? Do I need a psychiatrist? Do I need a behavioral health? Do I need a social worker? Do I need who am I supposed to talk to? And they all have a different approach, even though they're all part of the same.
It's overwhelming for people.
Yes. So to answer your question, I don't think that it's black and white. I don't think that there is. I think that parents have to practice intelligent evaluation. They have to be discerning. They have to make decisions that are in the best interests of their children and family. And I think that it's up to us, though, as professionals, to help guide them in that path, and to also help parents to be a little more humble, too, if they do need support and help, and not be in denial. Well, just because maybe your parents or your in-laws did it that way, it doesn't mean that that's what's right now for your child.
So what is it, when did you come to the point, you obviously were with the International Institute for Behavioral Development, and then through that you decided you wanted to do Dr. Kim Live. Tell us about some of the vision that you've had for Dr. Kim Live and what you hope it becomes even further.
So initially, again, it came through IIBD. It was part of IIBD. We started it, and the way I pitched it and had it approved was, in other words, when they're calling in anyway, and we refer back to services, and then it became its own entity. And I actually, in a former employer of mine, one of my professional development opportunity, I had actually piloted it even before all of that, just to kind of like a video blog sort of thing privately.
Was this your idea to do this?
Yeah, definitely. All of it was, exactly.
So you wanted to expand the opportunities and resources and be more connected.
You get a lot of the same questions asked too, that it's like when I teach at the university level, if I get my rule of thumb is if I get a question from more than one student, I'll do an announcement, because likely there's others that have that question and they just weren't bold enough to ask it, or assertive enough, or too busy, or figured out, whatever the reason, other people could generally benefit from the response. So you can't be in every place at the same time. It was multiple reasons, for it, like I said. So IIBD approved it at one juncture and then didn't. So I said, kind of the same way.
You still want to do it.
Yeah, this is still needed.
Still something that's important, and
became its own entity. And it's nonprofit, and like I said, to date it's been more information dissemination, resources that way, entertainment through the online. We used a Ustream
Tell us about that. What is that, the entertainment part of it? What do you do with the entertainment part?
So the show, it was like when I was doing it, it was every Tuesday. I did 5 seasons of it. The part of Dr. Kim Live, the Tell Me What to Do Tuesday segment. Then we had other guest hosts come on, and they did a similar. Then
like you were saying.
Thriving Thursday was born out of that. Leanne was one of the hosts. She did that. Then there was a Makeover Mom segment for Mondays. All under
the Dr. Kim
All
Live
under,
umbrella?
Exactly.
So now with a Dr. Kim Live focus, will it all be just you now?
I'd like to continue to have other people
come
involved, right, and talk about ways in which, again, to enhance parenthood and childhood experiences.
And there are experts at certain levels in certain
areas. Exactly.
Not just random people, but people who are, it's all threaded together.
Exactly.
Providing the resources. You mentioned also events and things of that nature. Let's talk about some of those kinds of things.
So that's what
with Dr. Kim Live.
In terms of shifting roles, that's the hope and the vision in terms of where we're headed, is doing more live events, offerings, and nonprofits. So starting to do more fundraising efforts so that we can do more of those events based on what the needs are.
Like
that
what
service
kinds of events?
That sort of. So whether it's trainings for those that need them, parents or professionals. the sky's the limit. And we're
workshops,
to ideas, exactly, too, in terms
Q&A.
of what's really needed. What do people feel like they want to learn more about or could be helpful to them?
Do you see this as something that's just really specific to the United States, or is it global that you're hoping to reach with it?
Well, and like I said, it's really been local, and I had students even at one point through different universities that were assisting, and it's sort of a way for them to start to expand their professional networks, also get their feet wet a little bit in terms of experiential learning, using social media for good. Right, and transferring technology. And there's a lot of good research now to support that as well, but to do it in a way that was, you also have to keep in mind university policies, procedures. And so that was part of it as well. But to get that cross collaboration again, which we also spoke of in one of our recent talks, whether it's professionals in training, parents, get everybody talking and working together, for the common good.
That's fantastic. So let's talk about some of the things that you're currently working on, because I know there's a lot in development with Dr. Kim Live. What are some of the other things you're working on?
Those are really, those are the directions. So really now more focusing in on those fundraising efforts, finding out getting feedback, what's really needed, whether it's a local community, whether it's at a university, whether it's at a facility, a place of employment, or for parents, whoever the audience would be, and what are their needs, and what kinds of trainings or other opportunities do they feel like would be helpful to them to add value.
Are people, the reason why you've continued Dr. Kim Live of your own accord, is it because also there's certain things that you feel people are craving, people are needing, that maybe aren't being served? So through this effort and this model of Dr. Kim Live, you're able to facilitate and be sort of like a conduit of that support and help. Exactly.
It's like a channel in and of itself, right? Without an IIBD, that was born out of that need initially too, the less bureaucracy, less constraints in terms of agendas and things that we've talked about before. And just those barriers with managed healthcare, with education, you have less hoops necessarily, but even that then becomes. So with media, it's more, it's different, and so it's just moving in the same goals, the same vision, the same mission, maybe a different means to get there in terms of getting the information into the hands of those who need it most, not in a threatening way, not in a condescending way. To be of help and of service. Like maybe, it's not to be overly critical or to be perceived as judgmental. It's just, how's that working for you? Is there something maybe we could change or do differently so everybody wins, so everybody can feel better about the experience? But that takes honest, transparent communication and not everybody's ready to do that all the time.
So this is part of this I think will surprise people, and I mentioned it in the introduction. This is part of a nonprofit situation. Tell us about that, because it's as if you're giving back to the community in such a beautiful way, with it being, under the auspices of being a nonprofit.
And it's been a lot of hours, a lot of sweat equity. We've not collected a dime. So far, it's been all personal finances and all hours free. And like I said, those that have joined us, it was, they were promoting their service or their product. So now we do want to do some fundraising to help, facilitate more of that, obviously. But yeah, that's really what it is about, is trying to do it in a way, those barriers that to date we haven't even been able to successfully eliminate or break through, even being a private entity, IIBD. What are ways at another level to continue to break down and through those barriers and help people change?
And make the world a better place is one of the things that I know is very near and dear to you. So let's talk about this initial personal passion and drive that you have as Dr. Kimberly Rehak to want to do that, to want to do everything you can and leave your mark, legacy, to make the world a better place. Because you're a psychologist, you see a lot of the things people struggle with.
And
we're going
a lot
in
of
weird
unnecessary pain and suffering, especially with children. Children are sponges. They are completely amenable.
Sometimes we forget that.
We really do. And they're so impressionable. They're so programmable. Like it could be, and it's, for us to pretend like we don't realize that, and that it's something going on inside this child, and we have nothing to do with that.
Some people write them off too.
Just
go play, go on your video game, just go over there, leave me alone.
And parents need breaks. Teachers need breaks. I'm not,
it has to
you can't be, it's
24/7.
you live in a real world. I'm a mother of 4 children myself.
So you know,
I can tell you,
speak
birth order
from
effects. There are
true
things
experience.
my 4th child, she has had access to that even my almost 14-year-old child, I never would have allowed that. So it's, there are other factors that compete, but by the same token, it is 2019. This information, these resources have been available for a long time. With social media, they're even more readily available.
So did people not know they were available before? Is that what it
People will
was? The
sometimes,
access
I
wasn't
think,
there?
say that they weren't aware, or they other defense mechanisms. It's, well, you can't learn everything in a textbook, or you can, and just excuse making. And sometimes it's children first. Well, is it really? Is it really about what children need? So, and again, part of being a good, whether it's a parent, teacher, anybody that works with children, you do have to take care of yourself. You do need that self-care time. So it's not saying that that's not true. It's balanced, but it can't be all about you and not at all about, it's not one or the other extremes. You have some people that it's all about their children. They give up whether it's their occupation, whether, and that's too much pressure for the child and for the parent, but then you have the other extreme where it's all about the parent and it's not really about the child at all. So, or a professional. So it's, it's finding that middle ground and balance, as children, when they're young, yes, you have to be more in control of their environment, very aware of whether it's the foods they're eating, the type of activities. As they become adolescents, they need more freedoms, more autonomy, to make their own decisions.
Do you
to
find
make sure they're safe?
Do you find sometimes the parent or parents might be, especially maybe with the firstborn, sometimes obsessed or over controlling with the child?
Birth order
Don't do
effects.
that. Don't say that. Don't go to and sort of keeps the child sort of in this locked position where they can't maybe express themselves or whatever because they're so concerned and worried about that kid that they're on top of them constantly. And this whole other thing that we talked about at dinner last night is this whole thing where now my kid has to be the best. Classic example was this news story that came out about a week ago where there was this kid who was playing foosball with his cousin. So they're at this house, foosball, fun, kids, 2 cousins playing, youngsters. Their parents, who are all related, one sister, the other sister, brother-in-law, they're all there. The one kid loses. The kid that loses flips out, flips the table over, has a tantrum, yells, cries, screams. The other kid who played fairly and won, who's his cousin. The parents of the kid who did that tantrum and flipped the foosball table over went up to the other parents, who they're sisters, and said, the way we raise our children is they don't fail, nobody loses. So can you please tell your kid, who's their nephew, to tell our kid, who's the cousin, that he cheated and that he is sorry that he won. What kind of an example? What's that kid going to grow up to be like? Do you see things like that in your experience?
All the time. And it's one side of the pendulum or the other a lot of times.
That's an extreme.
Right. And what kind of message are you not only sending to the child who won fair and square and they're in life, whether you're playing a board game or a soccer game, right? People, it's okay to win and it's okay to lose.
Sure.
And we have to teach people to be really good at winning and really good at losing, because you're going to lose sometimes, you're going to fail sometimes, and it's okay.
Yeah.
That's part of life. But you have some parents that the idea of their child feeling or experiencing pain is unbearable to them, likely because of their own unhealed childhood issues or what have you, whatever else is going on in their lives that maybe they're projecting onto their child. And again, that's not a formal analysis, and I'm not speaking for every parent, but oftentimes
really
when there's that hypervigilant response, mother bear, overprotect, and we see even, we also have worked with adults, and it's parents of adult children who have not let Johnny go yet, leave the nest. And that's really concerning at that level. And of course there's there's other cultural factors that we have to consider. But to answer your question, I think that sends the wrong message to the child that won, and of course the child that lost, in terms, for many different reasons, right? And just handling life in general. So, and I talked to you about my work in criminal justice. I mean, you really see, I mean, it won't happen for everybody, but some in terms of how they would internalize that message, what could really happen
out
in
later
the
in
future
life.
when you don't really
Feeling.
earn
Right.
that
Expect
win.
everything, just grab it, and
Yes.
maybe rob a
Yes.
store or just whatever it may be.
Exactly.
Right. So
Right.
you see, so that's a
And
pattern.
to begrudge and to resent those that actually did the work because they're threatened by that, or well, that sense of entitlement.
Well, I know it's
My
important too
parents will
because
handle it for me.
exactly right, exactly, which we see a lot now these days. I know one of the big things that we had talked about earlier, and we can share here in this interview, is really addressing what goes on at home. I mean, everything starts at the home. Like you said, kids are a sponge. So if they see the parents maybe always arguing, or if, like this case with the foosball, the kid is always a winner, he doesn't lose. The other kid now, and of course the kid didn't apologize, and nor should he, and he didn't lie and say that he cheated. None of that happened. But I mean, everything
the child
starts
that
at
won,
home.
and then they start to feel shame and doubt about winning.
He'll never want to admit to winning or
Right.
being good at something.
And then he becomes the self-sabotaging.
So it's a bad cycle.
Yes, for everyone involved.
So it really, the bottom line, I know it's near and dear to your heart, is that everything really, if you source it and you go back, it starts at home. And
Absolutely.
whatever that atmosphere is, whatever that situation is at home, is long lasting, right?
Exactly. And again, it's not to say different effects for different individuals, but we have to be
Right.
willing to look at those as children as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they all need different things. Just like as adults, we're not the same. We have a lot in common, and we
Right.
have a lot of differences too.
Right.
Different preferences. We have to consider that with our children as well. As well, this had this effect on this child. It doesn't mean it's going to have this, or just because they liked it that way or wanted it doesn't mean that your other child is the same. So to be willing to make those accommodations, you can really learn a lot about what people need when you really study behavior. Now as a special education, a lot of my background, it's the human condition, it's human behavior. But people that haven't had access to that training or maybe dismiss it, we don't need that, that's only for children. No, it's really about everybody.
It's about everybody.
It's
yeah.
really, so it's really starting to take a closer look. Well, we didn't need that when I was a child. It was just, you're going to behave or else. So, and children today, all these rewards. I mean, we've been criticized.
Everybody wins, everybody gets a prize, everybody gets, right.
And that's, one of the major
used to get gold stars and
criticisms
smiley
of behavior
faces.
analysis, though, is like, well, you're bribing them. No, it's using reinforcement-based approaches. They're also the first parents or professionals to use punishment in not, methodical ways.
Mm-hmm.
Or the first to oust a
Right.
child and
Right.
change a placement because they didn't use a systematic approach. We try reinforcement-based approaches
Constant,
first,
right.
and that it's not to say there isn't a time or a place for that approach either. It's a continuum. We've talked about that
Exactly
before,
right.
but it's done in a very systematic way. So people usually,
Not just rewarding.
they'll say
right.
we're against punishment, but they're the first to use it.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
it's just a
Yeah.
phenomenon. You're doing it all the time, and you don't realize the effects of what you're doing are punishing on that particular child. But they might have been reinforcing on another.
Because they will
Same
never
with
learn
adults.
consequences or
Yes.
consequences for your actions and taking responsibility. I mean, we used to get smiley faces and gold stars on our, report cards on our tests, but you had to earn them.
Yes.
You didn't just get handed the smiley face or the gold star just for the heck of it.
What are you
had to earn it.
reinforcing then?
Yeah.
If you just right.
One of the things too, in terms of some of the things that are happening in society these days, is people's reaction to things and overreaction to things when they feel like their life has been halted purposefully by others, or when they feel like they're not getting something that they're entitled to. Like, for example, I had mentioned to you at dinner, I was doing a television interview with CUTV News, and we were flying from California, and one of the stopovers, I believe, was in Minneapolis. And when we were getting ready to land, the weather was horrific. I mean, we felt we were we're going into an apocalyptic situation. Dark clouds and lightning. We land, and we're waiting for the connecting flight like everybody else is in this airport. And the air traffic controls people said, we're going to ground all the planes because look out the window. It's possible tornadic weather in Minneapolis. So of course I'm saying, well, good, because I really wouldn't want to go on a plane where everything is swirling and it's pitch black and lightning and fierce rain. And if they're making that decision for the safety of all of us, that's a good thing. A couple of people would go up to the counter. Poor woman there doing her job probably hears this kind of stuff and has to deal with this all day long, like people in retail do. And she was getting such an earful from people who were saying things to her like, how dare you, this woman, do this to me? How dare you do this to me? You are ruining my life.
Right.
I'm going to sue you. You people. This is and of course making a ruckus where everybody else would hear it on purpose. Because we're living in this society now of everything is a hashtag and everything is a movement. So he's trying to drum up everybody. Everybody else was just sitting there, almost saying in their minds, I'm sure, lady, just sit down and relax. Look out the window. It's like tornadic weather out there. You don't want to be on a plane. So it was just interesting for me, because I study people like you do and the career I do, communicating, where I was getting a little aggravated. I always wanted to say, madam, please, for the safety of all of us, just sit and relax, because they're making a decision for all of the good of everybody, including the pilots and the crew, not to fly. But there were people who felt so entitled and like as if they were being targeted purposefully. And this woman behind the counter has nothing to do with the decision that's made. That was made at the top for the safety of everybody. So do you often look at people like that and say, gee, I wonder what their childhood was like?
All the time. I know what their childhood was like.
Because that's what I said. This person is spoiled. What a brat.
Yes. And again, another child may have grown up in the same home, but vicariously they saw their sibling behave in that way, and it was almost embarrassing.
Yeah.
So, there's, again, different effects, but all the time. And it's hard to not blame the parents in that situation, because and you almost feel badly for that adult child still behaving as a 5-year-old when he or she doesn't get his way, and that entitlement is so.
It must be hard for you to sit there and hear that and not want to say.
Right, and I try to disarm, and that's part of just being a good therapist, is validation of how someone's feeling. You seem really upset, and it's the smart and right thing to do, as a smart teacher of mine once said, wise teacher, in terms of we know that's going to de-escalate the person in the moment. So you could actually reason if you can reason with that person. Some people, if you
Some
can't,
people they just don't want to.
Irrational, you're not going to be able to rationalize. So you know when to even try, and when it's just going to fall on deaf ears. But in that situation where you hear all these stories now, airlines, and that they've even had to remove people from plane, because their behavior is so disruptive, and just like in a classroom. So it does start in the home, and that's what parents, professionals in schools, you have to be aware of the individual effects on behaviors. And that even if, let's say that there was a faulty analysis of the situation, that it was clear. You saw out the window what the weather was like, right? You're not going to argue with that. You don't need,
We don't need to be on that plane. We can wait.
Right. That's not safe for any of us.
Right. Well, what about
other people would be having emotional reactions if you took off in that situation.
Right, then they get on the plane and say, well, why did you take off?
Right.
Exactly. Well,
safety
now,
concerns, legitimate
in more of a current
safety.
scene situation, now you have this situation, and of course, sometimes we live in a society where it's copycat. Somebody sees something, and they get buzz, so they want to copy it and do the same thing. So now there's this situation going on where there was this particular woman, and again, this is all psychology and human behavior, and like you say, it all starts in the home. Fascinating stuff, some of it really ridiculous. And when it's at the expense of other people, all bets are off, stop. But where this one particular woman was in a national department store chain, in the food aisle. This is recent, the last couple of weeks, I don't know if you saw it on the news. And she went into the ice cream section and she took one of these brand name ice creams and she opened the lid and started licking it, and then put the lid back on and put it back in the freezer. And they caught her. And she's all yelling and screaming, and I'm not paying for it, and who do you think you are? Da, 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 da. There are people now, because security video is capturing them, and they actually want to be seen and heard on security video doing something illegal to get the buzz and fanfare of the world by
just like with children.
They're going into the stores, opening up ice cream, licking it, and putting it back. There was a kid a week ago who opened up a bottle of mouthwash, gargled it, spit it back into the mouthwash, put it back on the shelf. They caught him, but he had a tantrum when instead of saying, "Okay, I did something wrong," this is
that taking responsibility.
He's
that
getting mad at the
accountability
people
piece.
who caught him.
And that's the society we live in, whether
Victim.
it's schools,
Victim.
whether it's medical, whether it's all over the place anymore. It's people are scared to stand up to or to even institute any level of justice, whether it's with adults or in schools or in any level of accountability, responsibility because of the reaction. So like you gave that example of the foosball. It's what. And we wonder why the world is in the
You shouldn't be able to say and do
no,
anything.
there is a right and there is a wrong.
There has to be boundaries.
There is an appropriate boundaries. It's all about boundaries.
There has to be boundaries. And balance. Boundaries and balance.
That's just it.
And then you and I were talking about, again, the other night, you see a lot of these videos online, when you're scanning online, of people who go into retail stores or fast food stores, shops, restaurants. And the worker who's got a line of 48 people who's been working for minimum wage all these hours forgot to put the straw in the bag with the cheeseburger and the fries and the shake.
That's a heinous crime.
And the person goes right up to them, not only verbally confronts in front of everybody else, that worker who's working hard at minimum wage to probably feed a family or whatever it is, or to start their life, hoping for better opportunities, flips out, curses, yells, screams, threatens, targets. And then if that person tries to diffuse it, defend themselves, calm it, the other person jumps over the counter and wants to violently and now attack them. What the heck is going on there?
Right.
Doctor?
And where did that behavior
What's going on,
contact
doctor?
reinforcement in that person's? I guarantee you that wasn't an isolated
Help us, doctor. Dr.
event.
Kim.
Right. That didn't just come out of nowhere. And again, it starts in the home. I said it
That's
earlier.
what it is.
3-year-olds tantrums, yes, but it's how you reinforce those tantrums or extinguish it, right? So parents need training. I mean, they need counseling. They need help.
Road rage is another one we talked about.
Right, exactly.
Everybody's on the highway. If they're not going 110 miles an hour, they're trying to shove you out of the lane,
Right.
out of the right
who
lane.
modeled that behavior?
Right.
And it's not always the parents. Is it who's watching? Sometimes the parents are working and the parents aren't the ones that are directly influencing behavior, whether it's an extended family member, au pair, nanny.
Every man and woman for themselves.
Yeah.
What kind of
it's
society
training
is that?
for professionals and for parents, and that's what I mean. It's whoever is working with and surrounding these children. But what are we modeling? What are we reinforcing? Because that's what you're seeing now. So it's easy. I just saw
Victim,
a meme and a post
entitlement.
about generational. The boomers blaming this entitled generation, the millennials, and the millennials saying, "But you're the ones that raised." And there's truth in both. Right. So people to reflect really and.
Step back,
make these
take a breath,
changes that are needed, and to be honest. I did make mistakes, and maybe I did that because that is the way I was raised, and maybe that wasn't the right way, or maybe there's a better way, and I wasn't reading the right resources or research, and maybe I need to put down the bonbons and the whatever else I was watching instead of maybe what I needed to be watching if I decided to raise children. So. Not everybody's a professional who's also a parent, and it's, there's a lot of, the pendulum keeps swinging in terms of, well, as a parent, it's my right, this is my child, and I know what's best for my child. I'm mom, or I'm this self-righteous,
Exactly.
And it is your child. Are you focused on what's in that child's best interest? Like, when is it okay, and when is it too much? Where have we crossed a line?
Because the kids are listening and they're watching, and if they see all of the adults in all levels of society screaming and yelling and cursing and fighting, and I'm going to get what's mine, and I'm going to, revengeful acts.
You hang with monkeys.
All of that.
Gotta eat bananas.
Like the woman who went into another store and she ate half a cake in the aisle. And then when they came up to her and said, "Madam, okay, you ate half the cake. You're going to have to pay for the full price of the cake." And she slammed the cake down and refused and yelled and screamed. And then they said, "You're attacking me." She said that it was all, she did wrong, and she's the victim. And she refuses to pay for the full. "Madam, you shouldn't open up a box of cake and eat it in our store. Go home with it." But then refused to pay for the whole thing. With her kids right there, watching mommy act like that. Has that something that has just changed recently,
No, I
or
think this
is
has
it
been
that
going
we're
on
seeing it more because there's more information
Right,
and more
social
outlets?
media,
More
exactly.
outlets.
We're more aware. There's,
How do we stop this?
Again, we have to
It's
start
all-
taking responsibility.
And that's
I
your
think
mission.
Professionals definitely need to be more vocal and not be so intimidated and afraid of the squeaky wheel and the loud parent with a lot of resources who's going to, maybe the parent's right. Sometimes it's that, and the professionals need to change.
Right, exactly.
Other times, the parent needs to be a little more humble and receptive to what the professionals are saying.
Exactly.
And I think definitely now, women's liberation, a lot of professionals are also parents. I've had to make a lot of career shifts for many different reasons recently, which has also been humbling in terms of my own husband and his travel and work schedule, et cetera, among other factors. And so, and I was always a worker, and I always will be a worker, and that's what, this is my way to work now, where I can still get that information out there because I am so passionate about this, and I see so many things that can prevent so much unnecessary suffering for everyone involved. A lot of times, the parent does truly love their child. Robert Downey Jr., I saw one of his, and it was, well, my father, we smoked weed together. That was his way of showing love to me. How sad is that? For him to have that awareness, that didn't make it right. And so the parent may think that it's
Weed
coming
and the
from
love shouldn't be combined.
and that's
separate
what I mean
things.
About parent
Right,
training and parent
right,
counseling. And where do we need to decide, to draw that line about what is not okay? And does it have to be mandated that this parent receives training and counseling?
Right.
Do changes have to be made in terms of?
Right.
And because we look at the effects then on, those children become adults. And do you want to have a relationship with your child when he or she becomes an adult? Do you want it to be a healthy relationship? I've seen it. Adult children cut their parents off.
Right.
Because
as a result of everything
the
that
unhealthy
happened in
dysfunction, and it was a toxic relationship.
Sometimes, too, you have situations where maybe they'll say to the child, just go in the room and play with the video games. Just, throw things at them, toys and things to keep them occupied, as opposed to spending the quality time with them. That could be detrimental too, right?
Right. And again, I was a teacher, so by nature, I organize, I plan. It's just who I am. And not every parent is, and some are like that, some are not. You don't have to be a teacher. Maybe you're a teacher of something else, but it's just who you are. You plan and you organize your time proactively. So I think that I'm not against the use of electronics. It depends on when it's used, how it's used, what type is it appropriate at that age level. Obviously, for educational purposes, I think it's wonderful when classrooms use it, and it enhances learning experiences, and when parents do it for that reason. If it's a preference, we'll use it sometimes as in a word for a child. If it's for a few minutes in a waiting room, and it's that, and the child's doing an educational game while they're waiting, and then they're not disrupted. But it has to be done, with strategic plan. It can't just be the babysitter like maybe the TV was for the previous generations. Put your kid down in front and you don't have to pay for the baby, and that's not. So again, it takes some careful, analysis, planning, and if you don't have those qualities, well, maybe you need to enlist the proper supports of a professional who can help guide you, in implementing those supports, putting those supports in place.
I was told, too, interviewed a doctor who is in Kansas, and she's very involved in prenatal, and it was a fascinating interview, and she was talking about, I've become an expert in just learning. I always learn from all the people I interview, which I think is fantastic, and then I try to share it with everybody else. About the first 33 months of a baby's life being crucial. And she was talking about how we've come to the point in our society where when the baby is born, a lot of times it's taken or whisked away from the mom, and the baby needs to go immediately into the mother's arms and feel the warmth and the love, and into the father's arms. So that skin-to-skin touch early on is crucial. The second thing that she was talking about is kangaroo care. When you're carrying the child, what you see a lot now is people will have these sort of carry cases where the child is being carried in this little case. It almost looks like they're in a pocketbook or something, or a car seat, as opposed to having the child right here. And of course, breastfeeding was another thing. They talked about the importance of that because we've become the bottle generation. These three things really early on, that bonding with the mother and the father, the skin-to-skin touch, kangaroo care, crucial right out you know, this from the get-go. That's important, right?
And I've seen changes. I mean, like I said, my oldest is almost 14 and I have a 1-year-old. Even from when he was first born to my youngest daughter, there's been changes. I mean, a whole hour where they leave the mother and the father alone for just that
right.
skin-to-skin contact and bonding.
Really important.
That was not the case with any of my 3 children before that. So I can personally even identify with what you said. Of course, bonding, you have to look at other factors, parent-child interference with relationships, that relational development, healthy relational development, doing healthy activities together, constructive activities. And parents are human, just like professionals. Are they going to make mistakes? Are they going to lose their patience sometimes? But a parent being able to really regulate and build in supports as they're needed too, to continue to facilitate that bond in healthy ways. But you, like we were talking before, you also see the opposite side of the coin where it's an adult child and they still haven't cut that cord, you know, metaphorically with their adult child either. So, you know, I think that we really have to do some, I keep using the word reflection, accurate reflection. It doesn't help anyone if you keep reflecting inaccurately just to keep driving your own agenda that may not be faulty. Right, exactly.
Right.
So, you know, I think that we have to be careful too with some of these, you know, what about the mother who pre-me and the child had to be whisked away, you know, right away, and you know, what message are you, oh, now my child is forever scarred because this happened. I did an article a few years ago about that, or like a traumatic event happened in a child's early, you know, childhood experience, and now, you know, personally, I've even gone through things, let alone professionally, where, you know, I've had things like that happen, and my children are living proof themselves that that doesn't automatically make or break a child's life trajectory either. So I think we have to be careful about the messages we send. That can create some unnecessary guilt and shame for a caregiver. Well, this happened to them, so I have to overcompensate the rest of my child's life.
People do that, right?
Make excuses. It feeds that enabling, you know, in addition to maybe their own unresolved issues in other relationships.
That's so true.
Future. So you have to be careful.
A lot of experts who deal with childhood trauma and sort of that inner child. One of the experts, John Bradshaw, years ago, he did a special series on PBS, which was fascinating, and he talked about that. He talked about these unresolved issues that a lot of people have that go back to their childhood. So then sometimes what happens is when that's not resolved and they don't let it rise to the surface, they don't deal with it, they pass some of those things on to their children, and it becomes a generational situation.
Pattern.
You see that a lot?
All the time. All the time. It's in every family. Some I see professionally, some I see that maybe should be seeing professionally. So there's all different levels, and that's why we're here on earth, to learn. So in my own life, in the lives of people that I'm nearest, you know, and closest to. So none of us is immune to any of the things that we're discussing. We've talked about a continuum for, so, but again, that realization, that acceptance of that, and wanting to do better, and being careful to reflect, and being very choosy about, if people aren't willing to make changes and evolve with you, you might have to change who you're choosing to spend your time with. I gave that a parent of a friend of mine years ago used to say, you hang with monkeys, you're gonna, and it's the truth. It really is the truth. So is it maybe you're gonna go and spend less time there, or maybe you just can't spend any more time because that person's, you're trying to pull that person up, but that person's bringing you down, or your children down. So you really do have to be aware of the influences surrounding your children's lives. I definitely feel strongly about that.
And nothing's perfect. You can't.
Nothing is perfect.
There's no such thing as
can't
perfect.
live in
Some
a vacuum.
people
You can't
feel,
live in a bubble.
well, everything
Right.
has
Things
to
are
be perfect.
going
The
to
kids have to be
happen.
perfect. They don't make mistakes. We have to be perfect.
But there's enough in
That's
life that you can't
claustrophobic.
predict and prevent. So the things that you can, you know, it's that
Work on
serenity
those.
prayer. So that, you know, you have to definitely, it doesn't mean that you just become a passive observer in life and let life lead you. You have to take control and responsibility for the things that you can control and that you can mitigate. And that's just being a good parent, being a good professional.
Good person.
Exactly. And enlist those supports if you need them.
So Dr. Kim Live is one of those resources that people can really take advantage of and get a lot from. Let's go over again some of the things, because it is exciting, because it's there, it exists, but you're in the midst of, and you're on the cusp of taking it to another level right now with all these things in development. So overall, what do you hope the overall mission will be for Dr. Kim Live?
Transformation for all of us, for everyone, myself included, to really just in the ways that we need to improve and change, because it impacts our own life and the lives of those around us, whoever we choose to involve in our lives at that time or who is meant to be in our lives at that time, just to keep improving and to decrease unnecessary suffering as a result of those changes. I think that that's really what it is all about.
That's fantastic. That's exciting.
It is.
It's so.
To me, it's like, why else? What are we doing? If we're not working on that, why are we doing this?
And why do you do it? What is it about this that speaks to you?
It just, I can't really turn it off. And my husband will be the first to vouch for that. Right, exactly. Even when I say I'm not talking about that anymore,
but it's a wonderful thing.
Right. I can't turn it off. So it's.
And you shouldn't have to.
Right, exactly. So it's my husband does telecommunications, he builds, he constructs. So he's everybody is in their area.
When your specialty,
right,
game on with
exactly.
it. Right, exactly. So that's terrific. That's really exciting. And what are some of the ways that people can connect to learn more about Dr. Kim Live if they want to, take advantage of the resources, they want to follow along?
Sure. So going to the website, drkimlive.com would be the best place. And Kevin just did a whole facelift there and helped enhance the
Your
site.
Website?
Yes, exactly.
We're talking website, not facelift.
Yes, exactly. Metaphor.
We're talking website.
Right, not literal.
Update to the website.
Thank you for clarifying. Exactly. That's probably the best starting point. We used to have some social media pages. Those are not currently in use. So I think starting with the website, and then, like I said,
drkimlive.com.
ways in which, if you're interested in getting involved, whether it's volunteering time, monetary resources, there's lots of different ways in terms of looking for help, right, to participate. Exactly, to keep, if you share or align with certain mission, values, things I've discussed today, ways to get involved and to partner.
That's exciting. Together. That's fantastic stuff, huh? You're unstoppable, right?
Right.
So it's really great work that you're doing, and I tell you, we're so honored to have you here on CUTV News, sharing this because it's legacy building, but it's also pay it forward. I mean, when you're inspiring people and you're touching their lives at the deep level that you already have in your life and career. You've got the expertise, of course, of being a wife and mother too, so you can really relate, but also in your own life, things you've been through in your life and experiences you've had in not just your career pursuits, but as a person, a resident of Earth. You really have a unique perspective that you're willing to share with everybody to make the world a better place. Nothing more beautiful, right?
And to really have witnessed firsthand as an observer and as a participant. You don't want to put too much pressure on yourself, but it really is a lot of pressure in terms of how much we can affect outcomes and changes by what we do and don't do, what we say and don't say. So again, not to take it out of perspective or out of context, but to also realize the gift we've been given. I will say God, because I'm a big believer in God. And so I do feel like that is my mission and my purpose. That's the instrument. That's my part. That's the part I'm playing. And I do seek constant spiritual advice from God, directly from the source. So I do feel like that is why I'm here, is to help people truly understand we can prevent so many unnecessary. You gave the fast food example and a couple in the grocery store, the airplane. And so many tragedies that really they didn't have to happen that way. So to realize and capture our own power from above, and to realize how much we really can make the world a better place and make a difference by really aligning with that, by owning that power and doing what we can.
So why do you love this work that you do, Dr. Kim?
The changes, to see the changes firsthand. Likewise, I can get very emotional whether I'm disempowered because somebody else is strategically disempowering me, or I have other life events and circumstances. I can't be in 50,000 places at the same time, which is also why I align with Dr. Kim Live, because it does use broadcasting and other mechanisms to get the information out there, and telehealth and using other means. But I've seen firsthand in my own children's lives, in other people's children's lives, in my own life, how the environment is so salient in terms of its effects on behaviors. And if you don't have somebody with the proper reasoning, resources, information, training, what have you, the path that an innocent child's life could go down, even into adulthood, if so I think that it's one thing to read all that research, contribute to the research, write research, and to have done that for a very long time, and then to really see it outside of the lab, outside of the textbook, outside of the articles. And this is not that I needed that level of validation, but I've seen it at some extreme levels, personally and professionally. So to realize again how powerful we truly are. As human beings, and to use that in a
we
positive,
really need each other.
way.
We're living in sometimes in times where people are isolated. Oh, I don't need that person, or I'm not going over there. But we were designed to be.
Yes, and again, attach, detach. It's good. You know, we want to create autonomous, independent problems, but interdependence, still working together. You know,
not necessarily codependent, but interdependent.
Definitely not codependent. Yes, thank you.
Right.
There's a difference.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
That's it. You're amazing, Dr. Kim. Thanks so much for coming to our studio here and sharing all of the enthusiasm, the passion, your expertise with us, the new exciting things that are in development. I can't wait to hear more about everything that's happening. Keep us posted on that. Thanks for joining us in this interview. It was a real pleasure to have you here. Much success to you, too.
Thank you.
Keep up the good fight.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to learn more about our very special guest, Dr. Kimberly Rehak, just go to her website, Dr. Kim Live, right? drkimlive.com. For all of us at CUTV News, I'm Jim Masters. Thanks for joining us on this episode. We'll see you again soon.